The priest of shadows. They say the sickness came with the rains. Not the gentle rains that blessed the yam fields and filled the streams, but the rains that fell like tears from an angry sky, cold and unrelenting, turning the red earth of Amedioha village into a grave that swallowed hope itself. It started with old Mama Nkechi, the palm wine tapper's wife. One morning she woke with fever so fierce her skin burned like coal from the blacksmith's fire. By nightfall, she was speaking to people who weren't there, her eyes rolled back white as chicken eggs. 3 days later, she was gone. Then it was Okonkwo's twin sons, strong boys who could wrestle a goat to the ground with one hand. They withered like plantain leaves in the harmattan, their muscles turning to water, their bones pressing through skin like the ribs of a dying dog. The village medicine man, Izemwok, tried everything. He made incisions on their temples and rubbed in his most potent herbs. He sacrificed a white rooster at the crossroads at midnight. He even consulted the oracle at the sacred grove, but the oracle remained silent, her cowries scattered in patterns that made no sense, as if the spirits themselves had turned their faces away from Amedioha. Within 2 months, 17 people had died. The wailing of women became the village's constant song. Fathers dug graves for their children. Children became orphans overnight. The market square, once loud with haggling and laughter, became a place of whispers and hollow eyes. People stopped visiting each other. They stopped sharing meals. Fear became a living thing that moved through Amedioha like smoke, invisible but choking everything it touched. The chief, Igwe Okofor, a man whose belly had once been round from palm wine and whose laugh could shake the rafters of his compound, had become a shadow of himself. His own daughter, Adiz, his precious jewel, the girl with skin like shea butter and a voice that made even the birds pause to listen, she too had fallen ill. The fever had taken her voice first, then her ability to walk. She lay on her mat like a broken doll, her breathing shallow, her eyes staring at something beyond this world. Igwe Okofor had exhausted his wealth. He had slaughtered his finest cow for the gods. He had sent messengers to 3 neighboring villages seeking help from their healers. Nothing worked. On the day Adiz's breathing became so faint that her mother, Obiajili, lay beside her just to feel if her chest still rose and fell, that was the day the stranger arrived. His name was Father Elechukwu, though later people would argue about whether that was his real name at all. He came at dusk, that time when the world belongs neither to day nor night, when shadows grow long and uncertain. He arrived on foot, carrying only a worn leather satchel and a wooden staff carved with symbols no one in Amedioha recognized. He was tall, so tall that children craned their necks to see his face. His skin was dark as midnight, and his eyes held something that made people look away quickly, like staring too long at the sun. He wore white robes that seemed to glow even as darkness fell, and around his neck hung an amulet that caught the dying light in strange ways, throwing colors that had no names. He didn't ask for the chief's compound. He didn't inquire about lodging or food. He simply walked through the village until he reached the home where Adiz lay dying, as if something had guided him there with invisible hands. Igwe Okofor was sitting outside his daughter's hut, his head in his hands, when the priest's shadow fell across him. The chief looked up, and for a moment, he saw something in the stranger's eyes that made his heart leap with something dangerous, something he hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Father Elechukwu spoke in a voice that was like honey poured over gravel, smooth but with an edge that suggested depths better left unplumbed. He said he had heard of Amedioha's suffering even from distant lands, that the spirits had sent him dreams, visions of a village drowning in death, and he had come to offer his gift. Igwe Okofor was a proud man, a man who had never begged in his life, but he fell to his knees before this stranger. He clasped the priest's feet and wept like a child, begging him to save his daughter, promising anything, everything, his wealth, his loyalty, his very soul if needed. The priest smiled then, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, and placed his long fingers on the chief's head in what might have been a blessing or something else entirely. He said he would see the girl, but first, he must speak to the entire village. He must make them understand what was required. Within an hour, the village square was filled. Even the sick were carried out on mats to hear what this stranger had to say. Father Elechukwu stood in the center, his white robes catching the firelight from the torches that had been lit around him. He told them a story. He said he was once like them, a man of a village far to the east, beyond the great river, beyond the mountains where the sun is born. His village too had been cursed with a sickness that defied all healing. His own wife and children had died in his arms, and in his grief, in his rage at the gods who had abandoned them, he had journeyed into the forbidden forest, the place where no man returns, seeking answers. There, he said, he had met something ancient, something that existed before the gods themselves had names. It had offered him a gift, the power to heal any sickness, to pull souls back from the very edge of death's river, but the gift came with a price. He could never use his power for himself or his own blood. He must wander, healing strangers, never settling, never building a home, never knowing love again. The village listened in awed silence. Some wept. Others nodded as if this suffering made sense to them, as if a man who had lost everything was exactly who should have the power to heal. The priest said he would heal them all, every single sick person in Amedioha, but he required three things: their complete trust, their absolute obedience to his instructions, and a place to conduct his sacred work undisturbed. Igwe Okofor immediately offered the old shrine at the edge of the village, a place that had been abandoned since the time of his grandfather, a round hut with mud walls and a thatched roof that had somehow remained intact despite years of neglect. The priest accepted. That very night, he began his work. He started with Adis. The chief's compound was packed with people, pressing against the walls of the hut where the girl lay dying, trying to see, to witness what would happen. Father Elechukwu sent everyone out except the girl's parents. He closed the door, and for an hour, no sound came from inside. Not a word. Not a cry. Nothing. Obiajili clutched her husband's arm so tightly her nails drew blood. Then, just as the moon reached its highest point in the sky, the door opened. Father Elechukwu emerged, his white robes now stained with sweat, his face drawn as if he had aged 10 years in that single hour. Behind him, supported by her mother's trembling arms, walked Adis. She was weak, yes, stumbling like a newborn calf, but she was walking. Her eyes were clear. Her fever was gone. Her voice, when she spoke her father's name, was the most beautiful sound Igwe Okofor had ever heard. The crowd erupted in shouts of joy and praise. People fell to the ground, blessing the priest's name, calling him a god, a savior, a miracle. Father Elechukwu raised his hand for silence. He told them this was only the beginning, that he would heal them all, but they must be patient. He could only heal one person each day, for the work took everything from him, it drained his very life force, and he needed time to recover between healings. And so it began. Each day, at dusk, one sick person would be taken to the old shrine. Each night, they would emerge healed, weak but alive, their sickness gone as if it had never been. Within a moon cycle, all 17 who had been sick were well again. The village transformed. Joy returned to Amedioha like the rains after a long drought. Markets burst with activity. Drums played again. Children laughed. Young people danced. Igwe Okofor held a great feast in Father Elechukwu's honor. A cow was slaughtered, palm wine flowed like water, and the priest was given a place of honor beside the chief himself. The village elders, men who had seen many seasons and were slow to trust, declared that Father Elechukwu was a gift from the gods, a living saint who had saved Amedioha from extinction. They built him a new hut, finer than any in the village except the chief's own compound. They brought him gifts, yams, chickens, fine cloth, carved stools, everything they could offer. The priest accepted it all with that same smile that never quite reached his eyes, and he told them he would stay in Amedioha as long as the gods willed it, that he had grown fond of them, that perhaps here he might finally find peace after his long years of wandering. But Chidi saw something others didn't. Chidi was the village hunter, a man of 30 reins with eyes that could spot a deer's movement through dense bush at 100 paces, a man who read tracks in the forest the way others read faces. He was also a man who had loved Adis since they were children running naked through the streams, though he had never spoken of it, knowing a hunter could never aspire to a chief's daughter. When Adis recovered, Chidi's heart had sung with gratitude to the priest. But Chidi was also a man who noticed things. He noticed that on the nights when Father Elechukwu performed his healings, animals in the forest behaved strangely. He would hear them crying out in the darkness, not the usual sounds of hunting or mating, but cries of terror, high-pitched and desperate. He noticed that the path leading to the old shrine, which he often used to reach his hunting grounds, had begun to smell wrong, a sweet rotten smell that had nothing to do with dead animals or vegetation. He noticed that Father Elechukwu never ate with the village. Food would be brought to his hut, and the next morning the plates would be outside, the food seemingly eaten, but Chidi had never actually seen the priest put food to his mouth. Most troubling of all, Chidi noticed the children. There were always children in an African village, running everywhere, getting into everything, curious as monkeys. But no child ever went near Father Elechukwu's hut. Even the boldest boys, the ones who would steal palm fruits from the tallest trees and tease the meanest dogs, would not go within 20 paces of the priest's dwelling. When Chidi asked his nephew, a fearless 7-year-old named Nedi, why this was, the boy had looked at him with wide eyes and said, "Uncle, don't you feel it? That place is cold. Even when the sun is hot, that place is cold." Chidi had touched the boy's forehead, thinking fever had returned, but Nedi was healthy. Still, the word stayed with Chidi like a thorn under the skin. One night, unable to sleep, he decided to walk through the village. It was one of those nights when the moon was a thin smile in the sky, giving just enough light to see but not enough to reveal everything. Chidi's feet took him, as if by their own will, toward the old shrine. He told himself he was just walking, just clearing his head, but deep down he knew he was looking for answers to questions he hadn't yet fully formed. He approached silently, the way he moved through the forest when stalking prey, his feet finding the quiet spaces between twigs and leaves. The shrine was dark, no light showing through the cracks in the walls. He was about to turn back, feeling foolish, when he heard it. A sound. Low. Rhythmic. Like chanting, but in no language he had ever heard, sounds that seemed to crawl into his ears and make his teeth ache. Chidi's heart began to pound. Every instinct told him to run, but he was a hunter, and hunters don't run from the unknown. They investigate. He crept closer, circling the shrine until he found a small gap in the mud wall, a crack where the wall had begun to separate from the wooden frame. He pressed his eye to it. What he saw in that moment would burn itself into his mind forever, would haunt his dreams for every night that remained to him. Father Elechukwu was there, but he was not alone, and he was not standing, and he was not wearing his white robes. He was kneeling, naked, his body covered in symbols painted in something dark that might have been blood or something worse. Before him, arranged in a circle, were 7 clay pots. From each pot rose a thin stream of smoke, not the clean smoke of cooking fires, but thick, oily smoke that seemed to move with purpose, twisting in the air like snakes. And in the center of the circle, hanging from the rafters by chains that had no earthly business being there, was something that made Chidi's bladder nearly empty in terror. It was shaped like a person, roughly, but it was not human, had never been human. Its skin was like leather left too long in the sun, cracked and peeling. Its limbs were too long, joints bending in directions that defied nature. Its head was elongated, the skull visible through translucent skin, and its eyes, oh God, its eyes, were open and aware, glowing with a sickly yellow light. The mouth was open in what might have been a scream or a laugh, showing teeth like broken glass. Father Elechukwu was chanting to this thing, his voice rising and falling, and as Chidi watched in frozen horror, the priest pulled something from a leather pouch beside him. It was a small cloth bundle. He unwrapped it carefully, reverently, and inside was something that made Chidi's heart stop. Hair. A lock of dark hair tied with a piece of red thread. And even from this distance, even in the dim light from the yellow-eyed thing, Chidi recognized it. It was Adi's hair. He knew because he had seen her wear that exact red thread in her braids the day before she fell ill. The priest began to feed the hair into one of the pots, strand by strand, still chanting. The smoke that rose from that pot changed color, becoming red, the color of fresh blood, and it flowed through the air to the hanging creature. The thing's mouth opened wider, inhaling the smoke, and as it did, its body seemed to become more solid, more present, less like a dying thing and more like something gaining strength. Chidi understood with a clarity that felt like ice water in his veins. The sickness had never been natural. The priest had brought it. He had cursed the village, cursed specific people, using these tokens, these pieces of their bodies, their hair, their nail clippings, things he must have collected somehow, through some dark magic or theft. And the healings, the miraculous healings that had made him a hero, they were just him removing the curse he himself had placed. But why? Why curse people only to heal them? Then Chidi saw the rest. On the floor around the priest were piles of gifts, the very gifts the grateful village had given him. Yams. Chickens, their throats slit, their blood in wooden bowls. Cloth. Carved objects. And at the priest's feet, a large leather bag bulging with something. The priest reached into it and pulled out a handful of coins, old coins, coins that caught the yellow light and gleamed. Payment. The priest was collecting payment for his miracles. But it was more than that. Chidi saw the thing hanging from the rafters post with each offering, so it became more alive, more real. The priest wasn't just collecting wealth for himself. He was feeding this creature, this demon, this thing from whatever dark place he had found it. The healings gave him gratitude and gifts from the people, but more importantly, they gave him access to the village, to its trust, to its very soul. And with each healing, with each grateful family giving him pieces of themselves in thanks, he was binding the entire village to this creature. Chidi didn't understand all of it, the dark magic was beyond his knowledge, but he understood enough. Amedioha had not been saved. It had been captured. And Father Elechukwu was not a priest. He was a hunter, but what he hunted was not animals. He hunted souls. Chidi pulled away from the crack in the wall so quickly he nearly fell. His breath came in ragged gasps. He had to tell someone. He had to warn the village. But who would believe him? The priest was beloved, practically worshipped. Chidi was just a hunter. If he made accusations against Father Elechukwu, accusations of dark magic and demons, he would be the one called mad. He would be the one driven out or worse. He needed proof, real proof, something undeniable. His mind raced. He thought of Izenwok, the village medicine man. Izenwok had been humiliated by his failure to stop the sickness, pushed aside when the priest arrived. Perhaps he would listen. Perhaps he would know what to do. Chidi ran through the darkness to Izenwok's compound, not caring now if anyone saw him, knowing only that time was running out, though for what he could not say. Izenwok was awake, sitting by a small fire, grinding herbs with a stone pestle. The old medicine man looked up as Chidi burst into his compound, and something in Chidi's face made him put down his tools immediately. Chidi told him everything, the words tumbling out in a rushed whisper, describing the shrine, the creature, the hair, all of it. Izenwok listened in silence, his weathered face unreadable. When Chidi finished, the old man sat for a long moment, staring into the fire. Finally, he spoke. He said he had suspected something was wrong from the beginning, that no healing should work so perfectly, so completely, that illness and health were part of the same cycle, and to break that cycle unnaturally always came with a price. But he had said nothing because he had no proof, and because the village was so desperate, so grateful, they would have killed him for suggesting their savior was anything but holy. But now, with what Chidi had seen, they might have a chance. Izenwok said they needed to gather the elders, the ones who remembered the old ways, who still respected the balance of things. But they had to be careful. If Father Elechukwu suspected they knew his secret, there was no telling what he might do. The next day, Izenwok and Chidi went to 3 elders they trusted, Motsi Okoye, a man of 70 reigns who had been a warrior in his youth, Mama Adana, the oldest woman in the village, whose knowledge of herbs and spirits was legendary, and Ugochukwu, a prosperous trader who had traveled to many lands and seen many strange things. They met in Mama Adana's compound, in a back room where the walls were thick and voices would not carry. Chidi told his story again, and this time Izenwok added his own suspicions, his observations of how the priest's miracles defied natural law. The elders listened gravely. Mosi Okoye said that in his youth, he had heard stories of dark priests who made pacts with spirits of the underworld, who gained power by first creating suffering and then offering relief, binding people to them through manufactured gratitude. Mama Adana said she had felt something wrong in the air since the priest arrived, a coldness in the spirit world, as if something had disturbed the ancestors. Ugochukwu, ever practical, pointed out that the priest had indeed collected enormous wealth in a very short time, more than any wandering holy man should have. They agreed, Father Elechukwu must be exposed. But how? Mama Adana suggested they consult the oracle at the sacred grove, but Izenwok reminded them that the oracle had been silent since the sickness began, perhaps because the priest's dark magic had clouded the spiritual realm. Mosi Okoye said they should confront the priest directly, challenge him before the entire village, but the others argued this would be too dangerous, he might harm them or the village before they could act. It was Ugochukwu who suggested the plan that they eventually followed. He said they should watch the priest closely, document his movements, and wait for him to make a mistake. All practitioners of dark magic had rituals that must be performed at specific times, usually tied to the moon or certain days. If they could catch him in the act, with witnesses, then even Igwe Okafor would have to believe. So they began their vigil. For 7 nights, one of them always watched the old shrine from hiding, documenting when the priest came and went, what he carried. On the 5th night, Chidi noticed the priest leaving the shrine carrying the leather pouch he had seen before, the one with the hair. The priest walked through the village, his white robes ghostly in the moonlight, and stopped at 3 compounds. At each, he paused in the shadows, his lips moving silently, and at each, he seemed to take something, though Chidi could not see what. But the next morning, in all 3 of those compounds, someone fell ill. Not the same sickness as before, but different ailments, a child with terrible stomach pains, a man whose arm suddenly became paralyzed, a woman who went blind in one eye overnight. And of course, when the families came begging to Father Elechukwu for help, he agreed to heal them, but this time he asked for more than before. He asked the father of the sick child to give him a goat, the finest in his herd. He asked the paralyzed man to give him his best farming land for the temple he planned to build. He asked the blind woman to send her daughter to serve in his household. The village saw nothing wrong with these requests. They seemed reasonable, even generous, considering he was saving their loved ones. But Chidi, Izenwok, and the elders saw the truth. The priest was deliberately creating new victims to increase his wealth and power. He had moved from merely removing curses he had already placed to creating new ones, testing the limits of what the village would give him. His greed was growing. And with each new healing, with each new person bound to him through gratitude and death, the thing in the shrine was growing stronger. Mama Adana said they had to act soon, that if the creature became too strong, it might be impossible to stop. On the night of the new moon, when darkness was complete and even the stars seemed dim, the 4 conspirators gathered. Mama Adana had prepared special charms, amulets made from herbs and earth from the ancestors' graves, which she said would protect them from the priest's magic. They decided they would enter the shrine that night, all 4 of them plus 2 strong young men they trusted, and they would destroy whatever they found there. They would drag the priest before the entire village at dawn and expose him. It was risky, perhaps suicidal, but they saw no other way. Chidi led them through the darkness to the shrine. As they approached, that same cold feeling Nedi had described washed over them, a cold that had nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with wrongness, with the presence of something that should not be in the world of the living. The shrine's door was closed but not locked. Chidi pushed it open, and they entered, their torches held high. What they saw made even Motsi Okoye, the old warrior, take a step back. The shrine was larger inside than it should have been, the walls seeming to recede into impossible distances. The 7 clay pots were there, still smoking. The chains hung from the ceiling, but the creature was not there. Instead, Father Elechukwu stood in the center of the circle, waiting, as if he had known they would come. He was not wearing his white robes. He was dressed in black, in garments that seemed made of shadow rather than cloth. His face was different too, harder, the benevolent smile gone, replaced by something cold and ancient. He looked at them and laughed, a sound like bones grinding together. He said he had watched them watching him, had known about their little conspiracy from the beginning, that their amulets and charms were children's toys against his power. Izenwok stepped forward, his voice steady despite his fear, and demanded to know who Father Elechukwu really was, what he wanted with Amedioha. The priest's smile widened. He said his real name was too old for their tongues to speak, that he had been doing this for more years than their village had existed. He moved from place to place, bringing sickness, offering cures, collecting the wealth and devotion of grateful people, and feeding it all to his master, the creature they had glimpsed. And when he had taken enough, when the bonds were strong enough, his master would fully manifest, would consume the entire village, every soul, every drop of life, and he would move on to the next place, leaving nothing behind but empty shells and dust. Mosi Okoye roared in rage and charged forward, his old warrior instincts taking over, but Father Elechukwu merely raised one hand and the old man stopped mid-stride, frozen, unable to move. One by one, the priest gestured, and one by one, Chidi's companions found themselves paralyzed, unable to move or speak, only their eyes able to show their terror. Only Chidi remained free. The priest looked at him with something like interest. He said Chidi was different, that the hunter had a strength of spirit that was rare, that the amulet Mama Adana had given him was more powerful than she knew because it had been made with true love for Adis, and true love was one of the few things his magic could not easily overcome. He made Chidi an offer. Join him. Become his apprentice. Learn the dark arts. The priest said he was growing old, that he needed someone to carry on his work, and Chidi had the sight, the perception, the strength required. In exchange, the priest would spare Amedioha, would leave immediately, would even remove all the curses he had placed. All Chidi had to do was swear loyalty to the creature, allow it to mark him, and come away with the priest to learn. For a moment, just a moment, Chidi was tempted. Not by the power, but by the chance to save everyone he loved, to spare Adis and her family and the entire village. But then he remembered the hanging creature, remembered its yellow eyes and broken glass teeth, remembered that it fed on souls, on the very essence of life. To swear loyalty to such a thing would be to become like the priest, to spread suffering and death wherever he went, to be forever separated from everything that made him human. Chidi looked the priest in the eyes and said one word, no. The priest's face twisted with rage. He screamed that Chidi was a fool, that he had chosen death over glory, suffering over power. He raised both hands, and the air in the shrine began to twist and writhe. The clay pot shattered, releasing streams of black smoke that coalesced above them into a form, the creature manifesting, its terrible body becoming solid, its yellow eyes blazing, its mouth opening in a silent scream of hunger. The creature descended toward Chidi, its two long arms reaching, its clawed hands grasping. Chidi did the only thing he could think of. He grabbed one of the torches from the ground where it had fallen and hurled it at the pile of gifts, at the cloth and dried yams and wooden carvings, all the things the priest had collected. The shrine, with its old thatch roof and walls, was dry as bone. The fire caught immediately. Flames roared up, spreading faster than any natural fire, as if the shrine itself wanted to burn, wanted to purge the corruption within it. The creature shrieked, a sound so terrible that it shattered the paralysis holding Chidi's companions, and they fell to the ground, free but disoriented. Father Elechukwu screamed in rage and pain, trying to control the fire, but it spread too quickly, engulfing the gifts, the pots, the chains, everything. The creature thrashed in the flames, becoming less solid, more transparent, as if the fire was burning away not just its physical form but its very existence in this world. The priest lunged at Chidi, his hands becoming claws, his face no longer human, revealing what he truly was beneath the disguise. But Izenwoke, recovering faster than the others, threw a handful of his medicinal powder into the priest's face, powder made from plants that grew only in sacred places, that carried the blessing of the ancestors. The priest stumbled back, screaming, his skin burning where the powder touched it, smoke rising from his flesh. The shrine was an inferno now, the heat intense, the smoke choking. Mosi Okoye grabbed Mama Adana, and they ran for the door. Chidi and Izenwoke grabbed the two young men and followed. Behind them, they heard Father Elechukwu's screams mixed with the creatures, becoming one sound, a sound of such pain and rage that it seemed to make the very earth tremble. They burst out of the shrine into the cool night air, gasping, coughing, their skin singed, their eyes streaming. Behind them, the shrine collapsed in on itself, the flames reaching toward the sky like grasping fingers, and in the heart of the fire, they could see two forms riding together, the priest and his master, inseparable now, burning together, dying together. The noise had woken the village. People came running with water buckets, ready to fight the fire, but Izenwoke shouted at them to stay back, that this fire must burn, that nothing must be saved from it. Igwe Okofo arrived, with Adis beside him, and demanded to know what had happened. Where was Father Elechukwu? Chidi, his voice hoarse from smoke, told the entire story there under the stars, with the burning shrine as his witness. He told them about the creature, about the manufactured sickness, about the curse that had never been lifted but only suspended. Some of the villagers refused to believe, called him a liar, said he was jealous of the priest's power. But then Adis stepped forward. She said she believed Chidi, that she had been having dreams since her healing, terrible dreams of being bound by chains she could not see, of something feeding on her even as she walked and talked and seemed well. Others came forward then, the ones who had been healed, and they all shared similar stories of dreams, of feeling watched, of sensing something wrong even as they celebrated their recovery. The fire burned all night, and as dawn broke, nothing remained of the shrine but ash and twisted metal from the chains. In the center of the ashes, they found two bodies burned beyond recognition, fused together as if they had been melted and reformed into one grotesque sculpture. The village medicine man and the elders performed cleansing rituals over the remains, and then they buried them at a crossroads far from the village, with stones piled high over the grave so nothing could escape. In the days that followed, strange things happened. Several people who had been healed by Father Elechukwu fell briefly ill again, not with the deadly sickness from before, but with fevers and aches that lasted only a day or two, as if their bodies were expelling the last traces of the priest's magic. Adis told her father that she felt lighter, as if a weight she hadn't known she was carrying had been lifted. The village oracle, who had been silent for so long, spoke again, her cowries falling into clear patterns, telling them that the darkness had passed, that the ancestors were pleased with those who had stood against evil even at risk to themselves. But the village of Amedioha was changed. The joy and trust that had once defined them was now tempered with caution, with the knowledge that evil could wear a benevolent face, that miracles could be traps, that suffering could be manufactured by those who promised to end it. Igwe Okofor, humbled by how close he had come to betraying his people in his desperation to save his daughter, became a wiser ruler, one who listened more and acted less hastily. He honored Chidi publicly, offering him land and title, even suggesting that he might be a suitable husband for Adis if the hunter was willing. Chidi, who had never expected such fortune, looked at Adis, and she smiled at him in a way that made his heart forget every moment of terror he had endured. They were married 3 months later, and it said their love was so strong that even malevolent spirits would not approach their compound. Izenwook was restored to his place of honor as the village's primary healer, and he trained new medicine men and women, teaching them not just herbs and rituals but how to recognize the signs of dark magic, how to trust their instincts when something felt wrong even if they could not explain why. Mama Adana became the keeper of the story, the one who would tell it to children around the fire, warning them that not everyone who offers help is truly helping, that real healing takes time and comes with no strings attached, that power gained through another suffering is no power at all but slavery. And Motsi Okoye, the old warrior, appointed himself the guardian of the crossroads where the priest was buried, checking every day to ensure the stones had not been disturbed, that nothing had tried to escape from that dark grave. For a full year after the priest's death, no one in Amedioha spoke his name, afraid that speaking it might summon his spirit or attract others like him. They referred to him only as the deceiver or the false healer, and mothers would warn children that if they told lies or cheated or hurt others for gain, they might grow up to become like the deceiver, forever trapped between the world of the living and the dead, neither fully in one nor the other, serving a master that only consumed and never gave. The story of Father Elechukwu became a teaching tale, told not just in Amedioha but in neighboring villages as well, spread by Ugochukwu the trader on his journeys. It became a story about greed, about how the priest's desire for wealth and power had made him vulnerable to corruption, about how he had sold his humanity piece by piece until nothing remained but a hollow servant of darkness. It became a story about betrayal, about how Father Elechukwu had betrayed the sacred trust between healer and patient, using medicine not to cure but to control. It became a story about disappointment, about how the people's hope,